So about me, I'm Rajesh Khazanchi. I lead application provisioning products here at VMware, and I'm happy to answer any question related to application management strategy or application provisioning strategy. With me, I have Tirumalesh. He's going to talk the second half of the session, mostly on the VMware IT side, how they leveraged application management products. Tirumalesh, do you want to talk about yourself?
Hi, I'm Tirumalesh. So I head the technology labs and architecture at VMware. So today we are going to discuss, once Rajesh sets the stage for the overall product management strategy, I'm going to talk about how in real world we can adapt these management strategies and what the benefits are.
Okay, I need somebody to raise an arm saying that they have read it, and I'm going to skip it. Thank you. Thanks. So I'm going to talk about VMware's cloud management philosophy. It'll be just 5 minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, talking about what is there, how do we see this, how we want to help customers. Then I'm going to cover the dynamics of an application in real world as of now, with virtualization and cloud coming into picture. A little bit focus on application management strategy. From application management strategy, we'll talk about application director in a little bit details. Then I'll hand it over to Tirumalesh. He's going to talk about the VMware IT case study, where you'll see how they build a cloud application platform, leveraging some of the products. So when we look at VMware, VMware is completely focused on offering customers ability to build, manage cloud services across heterogeneous environments. What we believe in, the customers need ability to manage these services across heterogeneous environments, that is VMware infrastructure stack and non-VMware infrastructure stack, and at the same time across public, private, and hybrid clouds in some scenarios. So primarily focused on ability to provision cloud services, manage those cloud services from an operations point of view, and manage those cloud services from business perspective. This is the core philosophy from the cloud management perspectives. When we look at applications today, there are different dimensions towards applications. Around 10 years back, most of these challenges did not exist. Right from the physical to virtual and now to cloud, and that to applications being deployed across public, private, and hybrid clouds. That's one aspect. Second is these methodologies. There are newer and newer methodologies coming in from waterfall to agile. What results in is continuous churn of code. They want to actually promote it to the production. So you see weekly, in certain cases, daily builds coming out from dev teams. There are different frameworks also coming into picture. When you look at Java, .NET seems to be now traditional. Newer frameworks, every 3 months, 4 months, I see new framework coming, and they are just saying that it's going to rule the world now. Another 3 months, newer frameworks. Another big challenge there. And then you have packaged and custom applications, certain homegrown applications, third-party applications, mostly third-party in these days as well, and then SaaS-based applications. This is one dimension where you see challenges that when you are modeling this application, deploying across different clouds, hey, there's an agile methodologies. Every week I need to release these labels, and then newer frameworks coming in. Developer is choosing a different framework to build this application, and then, hey, is it a packaged application, homegrown application, SaaS-based applications or so? From this dimension, let's look at organizations. What are they heading towards? Primarily, there are organizations, they already picked up from physical to virtual, and now they are riding this cloud journey, which brings in a new dimensional change, which is there is a clear cloud operating model shift. when you see that there's a cloud consumer layer and cloud provider layer. Cloud provider primarily focused on infrastructure management, and consumer is more on the application management side. That's one aspect. There are also organizations, they want to follow a DevOps model. Developer going all the way up to production, releasing the code, and then you actually follow the process of release automation. And in many cases, organizations want to follow these both models. I want to ride this cloud journey, but follow a DevOps model as well. Needless to say, keeping all these challenges in mind. With challenges, you have opportunities. And this is our application management strategy. Manage applications irrespective of what infrastructure you built it on. VMware stack or not VMware stack, it doesn't matter. It's extremely important to understand that, because when we are riding this cloud journey, infrastructure is kind of seen as available for application guys to build applications on and deploy applications on. Also manage applications across public and private cloud. And we are going to talk in detail, Tirumalesh is going to talk in detail about how do we accomplish that part. The third one is we don't see build, deploy, and monitor as three different aspects of an application. We see it as a one integrated solution. When you are deploying these applications, you need to manage applications from the health point of view. So having an integrated application management is extremely important. I repeat, manage applications irrespective of what infrastructure you're built on. Managing applications across public, private, and hybrid clouds, and have an integrated application management strategy. When you are developing an application, modeling an application, deploying across different clouds, you should be able to basically monitor applications right there. Any questions here on the application management? I'm happy to answer that. Quiet crowd. Anyway, I'm going to talk about an application director, which is one of the products in application management strategy. Our focus for this session is going to be more on the application director side. This is an application provisioning platform, which helps in also update lifecycle management and release automation. So you can model an application, deploy this application across different clouds, and then manage update. That means day two operations. What happens a new release, code release came in? What happens you want to change a configuration, or you want to scale out this application, or you want to update certain configurations? That's the day two operations. And then what happens once you apply this change in one environment, you want to promote this change across different environments. Release automation aspect of it. Application director helps you do that. There are four aspects that I would like to emphasize on. One is about simplicity at which you can model this application. It's more like it has a canvas. This canvas helps you model this application. It's pretty much like Visio. How many of you used Visio? Great, many of you. It's pretty much like Visio. You drag and drop these operating system templates. You drag and drop middleware configuration, middleware services, which is your TC server, web server, JBoss, WebLogic, vSphere. And then you drag and drop your app. That's your WAR file, ER file. And you also define dependencies. That becomes an application topology. We call it application blueprint. We view that these blueprints would be the future. You want to make these blueprints smarter and smarter so that they'll be portable across different clouds. The next one is about update lifecycle management. It's great that you can provision this application. You pick this application, deployed it. But that's only 10 to 15% of the time you spend. 80, 85% or maybe more you spent on managing the lifecycle of that app. Okay, I have this application, it is running a security patch, I need to apply security patch to it. Or I have to scale out this application. or maybe certain configurations need to be changed. This is what I mean by update lifecycle. It helps you updating those configurations, applications, or code. A new WAR file came in. You want to apply that. And then not only just that, it helps you also promote it to different environments. Third one is rich set of catalogs. Agility is very important, or time to market. When you are trying to build this application, you need to build it fast. We have customers. It used to take them almost 6 weeks to model applications in their environment. It takes them almost 5 hours to model this because of rich set of catalogs here. These are standardized services that you would say, this is my standardized TC server, WebLogic, vSphere. And whenever you are modeling this blueprint, leverage these standardized services to model this blueprint. And then, when you are modeling this application blueprint, you can also inject monitoring agents out of the box. So you deploy it, your application is being monitored at that instance. You don't have to inject agents like our traditional softwares that they would say, okay, now you provision this application, now you start injecting these agents to monitor it, and you start managing the application lifecycle. That's not how we see the world. Let me explain a little bit more on application blueprint, because this is a fundamental concept in Application Director. And once you get this, it becomes easier to understand how Thirumalesh's organization leveraged it for building a cloud automation platform. These blueprints are set of operating system and middleware stack. And you can also define dependencies on this. Then you have these rich set of catalogs that you can leverage. So you're modeling this blueprint, but you're not creating everything from scratch. So Apache, TC server, web server, Oracle, MongoDB, it doesn't really matter. It's from VMware middleware stack or non-VMware middleware stack. We pretty much ship most of it out of the box. We also have marketplace, which is where community or partners, we have 70 to 80 partners right now building the content for these catalog services. And you can actually, all you have to do is basically import that in Application Director. You'll be able to leverage it. Goal here is that organizations should spend less and less time building these catalog services. They should be just picking it up, adding certain configuration, and they are done with it. And once you build this blueprint leveraging this catalog service, then a developer comes in, wants to deploy it in developer cloud. It could be either private or public, using a profile, which is a development profile. So this blueprint has collection of properties. It could be cloud properties or application properties, and then deploys this in development cloud. This is where we abstract certain concepts of blueprint and environment. Blueprints are portable, and deployment profile helps you bind this blueprint with particular environment. Similarly, QE engineer wants to deploy it in QE cloud or test cloud. They can pick the same blueprint and leverage it, use a different deployment profile to deploy it in test cloud. This is fundamental concept. The goal here is to make these blueprints more like standards. And then if this is an Oracle blueprint, I would like to inject Oracle policies, I should be able to do that. That's our goal. That's where we are heading to. Gone are the days where you start having install configuration scripts for each of the middleware stack, then you start actually making these. That's not how we see it. You have EBIS blueprint, you have SAP blueprint, you have SAS-based blueprint, you have SOA-based blueprints. You should be able to create these blueprints. In certain cases, you might have your own custom applications. For that, you basically create it from catalog services. But these catalog services are also out of the box. So time it takes for you to model this entire blueprint is enormously low. Any questions here? Sure.
Production database would be reused for dev and test, but it might have some data scrubbing and things like that. So presumably you don't want to keep all of that data inside the blueprints.
That's right.
It'll be separate. So how do you manage blueprints and deployment of applications in OS is separate to storage versions?
So we have, especially for different environments, there are two parts of this question. One is that in my production environment, I want to use a different storage, and which is connected to a different tier. That's one aspect. So you can always inject that part of the deployment profile. Blueprint gets separated from there. But if it is about just provisioning, generally production databases, you don't provision it out of the box. So for dev and QE, you will create a blueprint which is going to provision database and then test it. But for production, you would create an external service. You would say this blueprint leverages external service or existing services, which could be a database as a service. So you would connect to your production environment and run with it. So all that capability is there.
Sure. I think one is around the provisioning. The other one is around the refresh, which you mentioned, like, okay, I have a production data snapshot, HR data is there, I don't want. So this is a set of services that you define.
Yeah.
And as a part of your blueprinting, this becomes a service that's maybe mumbling and jumbling of the data or some way of doing this. This becomes just a service. So you have a vanilla provisioning, you have a data copy thing at the same time. This becomes one more service for you. So here, whatever we talk is a service. A task. So, and depending on your profile and all those things, you have a blueprint which is generalized, but you have a service that does specific to certain set of things.
And Tirumalesh, would it be great if once you are actually covering your slides, you can talk a little bit more about that? Yes. I'll explain that. That's in the next couple of slides. So once we are done with the blueprinting, just hold that thought. I'll definitely cover that as part of my next slide. There are three main core pillars of our strategy, especially on the application director side. So when I talk about extending multi-cloud, it's just not only supporting, this cloud and that cloud. That's not how we see it. Over the period of, I'm expecting like in next 2 years, we'll have newer evolution of different types of cloud, OpenStack or non-OpenStack or commercially, non-commercials. So the way we see it, that we have created a cloud abstraction layer, and there are adapters to different clouds. We have right now out-of-the-box adapter for public and private vCloud Director and Amazon EC2. But there are also few enterprise customers. They said, we're not going to use either of these clouds. We have our own cloud, and all we want is leverage application director to provision it, but do you have certain APIs that we would like to leverage it? So cloud abstraction layer provides that set of APIs that you can actually extend it for your own homegrown cloud. A lot of customers are leveraging it. It takes about 6 weeks to build an adapter for that cloud, and you will be able to leverage it after that. Of course, we will be shipping some of out-of-the-box adapters. That's what we did for EC2. We feel they have a good customer base. But if it's homegrown, then you have to build your own adapter. Update lifecycle, as I said, provisioning is just one aspect, and I'm going to cover that in a little bit of a detail in the next slide. It's just one aspect. Update lifecycle release automation to me is the most important aspect when you're doing. Provisioning is one-time activity. Update is, it happens very frequently. And then integrated active app management. This is something I personally feel many of our competitors have not focused on this aspect, that when you are actually modeling this application, deploying this application, application operations is more like an afterthought. So start injecting those different performance monitoring agents and then start managing it from different KPI level. What we believe is that this should be part of your own deployment. And once you have it as a part of your deployment, then you'll be able to do the topology sync. Anytime you have a scale out, scale in, you have a change, you are able to model that change. You're able to identify that change. And if there are any issues because of that change, you should be able to automatically go back to an optimized layer and then say, APM is identifying this change. Can you please go back and remediate that or roll back those? So that's what we see, and that's what our focus is right now on Application Director and APM, bringing it together for an active app management strategy. Now, talking about update lifecycle, this is where it gets interesting. So this is an application blueprint. This is how it looks like. How we build this application blueprint, there's a app called Nano Trader app. Some of you who attended Steve Herrod's session, he actually presented this in his keynote speech. This Nano Trader application it's a multi-tier application. It has a load balancer, it has app tier, it has a message queue layer, it has a database layer. And once you model this application, you deploy it across different clouds. But what if you want to make a change to this application? And this change could be either a code change, that a new version of Nano Trader came in, or it could be that application is not performing and I want to make some configuration change, or this configuration change could be because security breach is there, you don't want to use 8000 series port, you want to use 9000 series port or whatnot. Or you just want a scale out based on some reason. A ticket came in saying that this application needs a scale out from 4 node to 6 nodes, you want to do that. Now automatically your update profile gets created. The moment you make a change, update profile gets created. This is interesting from the rest of the competition here. This gives you change impact analysis. Any configuration change, any code change that you do, it shows you complete dependency across different components and services. Change impact analysis and dependency mapping. So if there is a particular property or configuration that you have made a change and it is dependent, and that property, another property is dependent on that property, that will automatically get changed. This is different from traditional orchestration tools. You have to make a change in every single place because you are actually referring to that property or you are reviewing that. This gives you an automated flow around that. Once you apply this change, once you review that dependency mapping change impact analysis, you apply that change into a particular environment. Say this is a test environment. You check with APM, it's working fine, then you want to promote it. You get notified that this blueprint got changed. Do you want to promote it to your different environment? Then you automatically promote it to different environments. I do understand and recognize in certain cases that you might not roll it out directly to production, but our goal is to give you that streamlined process that you can be able to do and roll this out to production in future. Generally, people do it to the pre-prod stage and not to the production. They handle it separately. It's kind of understood. But goal is that we should be able to drive it from all the way from test to all the way to production. You have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, the dependency mapping, is that leveraging Vim or anything like that, or is that separate dependency analysis?
That's an interesting one, actually. I'm evaluating Vim for many other things, but not for this one. We have a patented technology which we have built specifically for Application Director, where you define properties and those properties could be propagated across different components. So when you make a change to those properties, other components are aware of it and it shows you that change. So it does not, the way I see Vim is more like a topology discovery solution and nothing beyond that. It's not a configuration discovery solution, although we are evaluating it for application migration workloads.
Something could be configured but not used.
Yes, it wouldn't discover it. So right now it's more about I'm making a change. Because of that change, I want to see in my app what's getting impacted. And that's interesting piece. So it's not using Vim, but I see Vim can be leveraged for all of you. Vim is a infrastructure navigator product. It's an application discovery solution from VMware. And it can actually show you the entire topology of an application. You just provide one IP. It shows you what all other applications or VMs are associated to it and what is running in those particular VMs. More like a topology discovery. But what we are showing here is before even application is, if this change is applied, what impact it can cause to your entire application. And when can be useful once that change is applied, provided Win has capability to discover configurations, which is still kind of being worked out at this point in time. Sure. Yes, yes. Obviously, the versioning part is important. The lifecycle part is important. When you are making a change to an application, you can see the lifecycle of that. That I applied a security patch. After security patch, I applied a scale out. After scale out, I changed some configurations. So that entire versioning is available. Give me an example. Like I just want to make sure that I. Okay. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Yep. Yes, that's exactly what it is. So let's say production environment is at 1.0, and you are making a change and applying that change in 1.1. Production and stage environments will get notified, but will not be impacted. Once you approve that and say that, yeah, I'm approving this notification, then you can leverage the same update profile across different environments. That level of versioning, yes, absolutely, it's available. So there are two aspects to it. I kind of understand your question where you're going. We leverage source control as your actual versioning solution, while as this is a release automation solution. So if you have a build label in source control, we would just honor that. And all you have to do is basically say, this is the build label, connect it there. So all your entire code configurations will stay in your source control repository. We are only managing the process part of it. Now, guys, this is my last slide, okay? So what did we cover here? We talked about application director's ability, its flexible architecture that helps you model applications leveraging any common framework. If you have Bash script, Python script, PowerShell, or Puppet or Chef, you can leverage all those in Application Director to build blueprints. We are not providing an application provisioning solution only. We are providing an application provisioning platform. And we do understand different customers have different frameworks, language frameworks, I mean, and install configuration recipes are built from different languages. We honor all of that. I had a session on Monday with Puppet Labs co-founder where we showed them how Application Director components can be created using Puppet modules. It's the same case for other components as well. Second is, as I said, multi-cloud support. We don't believe in vendor lock-in. We feel like it's extremely important if we are offering a management solution, it has to be heterogeneous. With cloud abstraction layer, you'll be able to support any kind of cloud. Update lifecycle and impact analysis, release automation, extremely important. That's where I feel like we can actually grow a lot. Application Director can actually provide that comprehensive solution of not just provisioning, but update lifecycle and release automation as well. And then finally, auto scale, elasticity, or integrated application management, fundamental for our strategy. This is what we covered in whatever time we had. we will definitely be open for any questions once Tirumalesh finishes his, but I'm happy to take one or two at this point in time. Yes. So blueprint is one. Whatever you want to standardize, you would add that as part of blueprint. Whatever is custom to an environment, say test needs a different configuration than dev, you would add that as part of deployment profile. Yes. That is exactly right. So that's where we actually say standardize elements on blueprints. You have architects, application architects, they build these best practices. It's more like think blueprint as a live document that you want to have best practices, and deployment profile as binding to a particular cloud with certain customization. You can add workflows, you can add properties. These properties could be cloud-based properties or application-based properties. Cloud-based, for example, I want to deploy it in a private cloud, vCloud, use these networks, use these storage, use these templates. That's one. And use these application properties like 8080 port or 9000 series port or http.conf. And then you move to a production environment, it could be completely different. I'm deploying it in a private vCloud, but don't use external IP. You can always mention that. So that's where we see differences between the two, any standardization on blueprint, customization on deployment profile. One is an application aspect and another is management aspect. For management aspect, you can actually continue to leverage Puppet. But when you have to deploy an application and manage that application, you don't necessarily need hundreds and hundreds of servers unless and until they are connected all to a common cluster. So management aspect, it's a config management solution. We are not into that. We are more on modeling applications, deploying applications across different environments. Blueprints. Yeah, this is good that you mentioned. I did not cover that. So we have import-export capability, where we do recognize that in organizations there might be modeling guys separately and guys who are actually deploying it separately, or system integrator or service providers want to offer this. So we have capabilities where you can have different version blueprints. You can directly import it and export it. So you can export this blueprint. I model this blueprint. I exported it into a particular file. At the back end, it just creates an XML file. And then you can import that XML file into your instance.
That goes for both blueprints and deployment profiles?
Deployment profiles is not, it's basically key value pairs. But it goes for blueprints and catalog services. Deployment profile is just step 1, step 2, step 3, you save it. You can import that, but I feel the value is more on blueprints and catalog services.
Are those files suitable for version control?
Yes, you can absolutely do that. Okay, with this, I'll just hand it over to Tirumalesh for next step.
Thanks, Rajesh. So Rajesh talked more about like the product, our app management strategy, and the overall product capabilities of the application director. I'm going to walk through the real case study of like how we used and what business problems we solved, and what's the approach we took, and the architecture, design, and the benefits, which is real. So to set some problem context, so I think how many are you from IT? Okay, so you might have seen in any IT organization, I think when you're talking about one app, two apps, it's all great and everything works fine. You're talking about hundreds of apps in any IT shop, and that you are talking about multi-billion-dollar organizations, you will have hundreds of apps. So, and that too when you're talking about like Larry Ellison's family of apps, like all these ERP systems, middleware, access management solutions, master data management solutions, all these complex ecosystems, like if you're talking about any project delivery, you're talking about a SDLC lifecycle, like you have a dev, test, UAT to production, you have some instance path that you need to flow. And you need a complete ecosystem. It's not just about one individual app that you are provisioning and make it happen. Like you are implementing some new quoting capability or something, you need a complete ecosystem so that you validate the set of things. So it's not as simple as provisioning one single app, and Rajesh gave a lot of insight around like our blueprinting capabilities. But though virtualization, like VMware ourselves are 97% virtualized across the environments, and it has helped us to reduce the CAPEX, and it has also helped us to the overall hardware consolidation. But VM provisioning is just one piece of the puzzle. Like the post-provisioning task, industry is spending billions of dollars, like we ourselves, that cuts across various organizations. Like there is a networking team, there is a sysadmin team doing the VM provisioning, then there is networking team who does the load balancing, firewalls, then the other team going the app installation, DB installations, and all these things. So, and each of these handoffs between these organizations is a complex process. They need the ticketing systems and all these things. So VMware, like we are embracing SaaS a lot, but still 60 to 70% of the apps are on-premise solutions. So, and in average, it takes anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks for us to provision one single environment, which includes almost like 50 to 60 apps, which is wired together, and it needs to work. And again, predictability is low. It's more around like the environment contains almost like 100, 200 VMs per environment. And since there is so much manual intervention happening, the predictability is very low. We pull again the development people to actually, if there is issues. So we are taking a lot of time from the development and all these different organizations where they need to focus on the actual delivery aspects of the thing. So what we really need is a streamlined provisioning management solution at the same time refreshing. So our senior management was completely behind this to see like how can we leverage our existing investments at the same time, how can we achieve a solution that helps us to deliver programs on time, on budget. So here are some of the key takeaways at the end of this session. One is like once we have this solution in place, you can provide the whole as a service. So in a self-service way. And what we have built is now for this whole ecosystem, an engagement director or a dev or a QA can come and say like, okay, I need an environment to deliver this program. He can request as a service catalog, he can order. It goes to an approval process where a approver authority can look into what it costs. And once he looks and he approves, there is no manual intervention. The whole environment gets provisioned from all the way from VM, application, configurations, everything wired together, and even the data gets refreshed. The whole environment is completely which is usable. So, and the benefits are real. One is it has helped us to reduce a huge OPEX costs, and also it helps us to reduce the workload provisioning time by almost 85 to 90%. And also it's self-service and scales to future growth. And it introduces a new set of roles into the business organization where when we had like 20 organizations working on this, now we have a new roles that has, so that all the other folks can focus on what they really need to be focused on rather than doing the day-to-day stuff. And also it's highly adaptive, and we have built a lot of best practices standards that helps us to actually take better leverage of all what we have built, like other organizations can also benefit on what we have built against. So I like to say the approach we took, we didn't go big bang and say built everything and onboarded everything. The first was a foundation, which is more focused on platform. It's more like what we have invested till now, mainly the virtualized infra, how can we leverage the infrastructure? At the same time, what components do we really need to use in our management suite that helps us to build these things? Not everything is available in our management suite. What complementary things we really need to use? So, and also we validated the foundation phase with minimal set of self-contained apps once we felt comfortable, we went to the mature phase, which is we onboarded all this complex ecosystem, the ERP ecosystem, portals, middleware, access management, master data management, you name the whole thing we have onboarded. We have done some dry runs like we are operationalizing in Q4, and it's really from 3 to 8 weeks we have reduced to almost less than 24 hours with almost 10 to 12 terabytes of data also included. And we are working on phase 3, and the planning is going on where we are looking at more advanced capabilities for storage in place upgrades as well as the update lifecycle management, which Rajesh mentioned. So here is I like to spend a little bit time on our architecture. As you see, we have multiple components here. So if you start from vCloud Director, which comes as a part of our vCloud suite, that's where that provides the overall catalog management. Because you need to have a catalog of vApp templates, like what a specific, like whether it's a OS along with all the patch sets, everything. Like you need to have a vCloud Director that provides the catalog management. Then vFabric Application Director, which Rajesh went through, that provides the overall the application modeling, blueprinting, and deployment plans creations. Then the orchestration engine is our VCO, which again comes as a part of our vCloud suite. That helps us to, because there are a lot of do's and don'ts we really need to be careful about when we are implementing this huge, humongous platform, because you can't go and build one monolithic blueprint. When you have 60 apps, you can't just go and build all of them as one thing, which is unmanageable and unsustainable. So we need to make sure whenever we are going with this implementation, you have the right skill sets to be there in your organization so that you create the right blueprints with right set of components. And in order for all these components to tie together, because when you're talking about ecosystem, you need to create instances from various blueprints in a certain sequence. At the same time, there is a dependency across the blueprints. Say you provisioned a ERP ecosystem, middleware has dependency on the ERP ecosystem. Portals have dependencies on the middleware. So when you are doing this thing, you need to share the information across these blueprints. So as well as like you need to do IP address management. You need to do the load balancing, like you have your own F5 or something. So some of those tasks, we are using our orchestration engines to actually execute a number of blueprints, sharing information across the blueprints. And we are using messaging like RabbitMQ to actually share the messages across these blueprints. And we store the configurations in our Perforce, and it's completely encrypted. So I provision a ERP system. You push the configurations to the Perforce, which is completely encrypted. Then the middleware gets provisioned. It pulls that information from there. These are two different blueprints. So with this, then we have a self-service portal where we expose either as an individual app blueprint or as an entire ecosystem as a service catalogs, which has a complete policy management so that who has the authority to approve, who has the authority to request. So the whole policy management is a self-service portal where we expose a set of service catalogs. So with this, an end customer can go, who can be a QA or it can be a business engagement person, can request a particular based on its need. And it goes to the authorization. And once it's approved, you'll get a complete environment or as an individual app. So, and the best part is as Rajesh mentioned, we have gone through this process and we have created tons of blueprints. At the same time, our partner ecosystem is building these blueprints. And there is no need to reinvent the wheel. Whoever wants to use this thing can go and use all those blueprints what we have built. Because ERP ecosystem, there is a specific standard way you can follow. We have already a blueprint. Anybody wants to use, any customer can go and reuse those blueprint and add your custom set of things, because you have a vanilla set of things, on top of which you can add your custom set of services. That way it's much more, it gives you a complete, whatever the pain we went is gone. customers can just leverage all those things. And at the same time, one of the key things I like to mention is more around, like, there are some best practices and standards and do's and don'ts we really need to follow to make sure to meet the SLAs that we set with the management. Whoever is implementing needs to spend some time to make sure that they understand what is their needs on the clustering aspect, what is on the IP address management, because if they're using vShield, it might be a different set of needs. If they're using traditional things, it might be different needs. So on a high level, I just want to emphasize these are our 5 steps you may need to follow. If you're starting from scratch, you can use our VM Studio to actually create the OVF files, which is more like you can create a OS, which package, which patch sets, and all those things. Once you create the OVF files, you can upload them to the vCloud director to create a master catalog of all the VF templates. Once you have the VF templates created, you can import the VF templates into the app director to create as logical templates. And you can use these logical templates as a drag and drops, like as Rajesh was mentioning. Once you have all these things, you can drag and drop each of this set of things and create the dependencies as well as wire them and create a blueprint and associate what tasks, services you need to associate. Like few might support silent installs, few might not support silent install. You may need to simulate some of those things, like maybe you may need to use Selenium or something like that to simulate the set of things. So you need to be aware of app which you are trying to automate. Once you have the blueprints created, then you can create different execution profiles, because as Rajesh mentioned, like there might be a dev profile, test profile, UAT profile, or it can be different across the clouds itself, where it can connect to different, like in future you might be deploying all the dev things in private cloud, or maybe all dev things in a public cloud and production in a private cloud, or maybe stage in a private cloud. So you can have different profiles defined. Then once you have the deployment plans, you can use the deployment plans and use our vCenter orchestrator to orchestrate the various, like, n number of blueprints. In future, the app directory itself will be expanded to provide more like a nested blueprint model, like where you can act as a container, and Rajesh can provide more insight later. But currently we are using vCenter orchestrator to orchestrate all these n number of blueprints, along with additional tasks like IP address management, load balancing, and all those things. And then we are exposing in a self-service portal as a set of service catalogs, so that anyone can go request the service catalogs in a self-service way. So to recap, you have all the necessary components in our management suite, from VM Studio, which does the OVF file creations. Then we have vCloud Director for catalog management, App Director for all the blueprinting modeling, then Orchestrator for the orchestration, and a self-service portal. So here is a illustrative steps, like mainly a simple how you can create a blueprint with, if you see this thing, with 11 steps, you are creating a blueprint. So I know it's simple when you see the slide, but it's as simple as that. Once you have a better understanding of your app and better understanding of your installation and configurations, creating a particular blueprint is a simple of around 11 steps. It's more like you have the catalog, you create a catalog service, you create the logical template, then you create the blueprint, then you create the execution plans. So it's as I think there are certain set of best practices and standards you may need to follow to make sure that you do the right thing when you are creating blueprints, because that enables us to maintain and sustain in a much better way. So I like to touch a little bit around the change management. So for any organization, change management is key. We don't want any change to go from dev to prod and without small, like approvals and all those things. So what this has enabled is, in an SDLC environment like VMware itself has around 12 different environments at a time. You don't know which patch set exists in which environment. It's hard to manage, because when you're talking about hundreds of apps, 150 to 200 VMs in each environment, it's hard to see like what patch set, like okay, is Oracle database and across all these environments has the right patch set. This has helped us to streamline the system and configuration management, but we will move towards the code in the next phases. But as of now, what App Director along with this, the whole platform has helped us to is streamline our system and configuration change management. So currently, like since we are driving everything through the blueprints and ensuring that we have the right patch sets and we are provisioning all our environments using the blueprints, it has enabled us to streamline our system and configuration management in a much more streamlined change management process. In terms of code push, as of now, we are using our traditional way, but in our next phases, we will also move even the code push to much more. But there is a lot more that needs to happen, more like what happens to our Oracle PL SQL and all those set of things, because it's much more involved than pure WAR files or ER files and all this set of things. So there is much more involved, but it's achievable. We are looking in the next phases. So with that, I like to say like where we were yesterday and where we are today. Like yesterday, we used to have 15 groups involved with almost 15 to 20 people doing all this set of tasks, which is more like a manual. At the same time, we had so many ticketing systems and all these things where we used to handoffs and all this set of things, so many escalations. And this is where we are today. Like the whole VM provisioning is automated. There is no wait time, because there is nothing like no tickets has been created, because you request, somebody approves, that is it. The whole app provisioning is automated. It's almost like based on our dry runs till now, in our environments, we are able to almost reduce to 90% of the provisioning time. So, which is a huge win. At the same time, it helps us to have improve our security, compliance, auditability, and all those set of things. So some of the lessons learned. So few things I like to emphasize are, yes, we have a catalogs, we have a lot of learnings like based on, but there might be some specific needs to your environment, because each has their own set of n number of ecosystem apps and all those things. You may need to spend a little bit more time when you are defining this platform. You can use what we have built, because there is nothing proprietary. Everything is a set of open stack of like mainly our set of products that comes as a part of vCloud suite. There is nothing like we are using. And the good thing is everything is plug and play, a set of REST and SOAP interfaces, and there is nothing complex that we are using some proprietary drivers, protocols, or anything like that. And the other thing is, don't go reinvent like just because you want to do something. Reuse all the blueprints that we have already built. You can use that as a base to bootstrap your organizations to actually build the blueprints. If you are going and start building the automation, make sure you leverage our solutions marketplace, where you has plenty of blueprints that's already available, which might cover you all your needs. And maybe that as a base you can start building. And also, there is technology is one aspect of the thing, then there is people and process, because everyone is so used to the traditional way of, okay, I am a DBA, I am doing certain set of tasks. Now, and that guy used to do a VM provisioning, now I need to go and install it. But now that has gone, like he is doing, as a part of provisioning, he himself is provisioning the VM provisioning, he is doing the app installation, configuration, he is also doing IP address management, he is doing the load balancing. So he is doing almost everything. So there is a new role that comes into picture, like which is more breadth. Which organization does this thing? That's one of the things, the best, some of the IT transformation thing that I think you might have gone through various sessions that I might have talked. There is new roles that comes into picture, because there is n number of organization roles is combined into fewer roles. So with that, we like to take questions, like if there are any questions, and yeah.
Blueprints that you talk about, I mean, between the dev test stage of production, especially production in a distributed environment, versus the blueprint for us in non-production and production is different today, even without the virtualization. So, can we have, how do you manage the two different blueprints?
I think you mean in terms of, again, as Rajesh mentioned, blueprints and deployment plans. Blueprint is more like, okay, you have a single node and with certain configurations and all those things. Then you have a production 4-node cluster with a specific set of configuration, storage is different, and all this set of things. So you have a completely different needs, but your tiers, the number of tiers, like there is a app tier, DB tier, web tier, that doesn't change. So you are creating a single blueprint unless you are changing even the dev also, like say you are saying like for dev, I'm not going to combine my app and web servers in one single node. It depends on like, yeah.
But what I'm trying to just do a live example. Let's say we put your different profiles and dev test production. So each one represents a blueprint, correct?
No.
No.
There is only one blueprint where profile is more like what is the change. There is one dev web server, apps tier, and database, and this is the dependencies. Okay. But there is custom set of things like where for web tier, for this UAT environment, 2 web server nodes, 4 app server nodes, and 1 database. That is your profile. For dev, you are saying 1 web server node, 1 app server node, 1 database. That's your dev profile. So it's more of a
Think
profile.
it to be, yes, collection of properties.
Huh?
Blueprint is basically a basic architecture.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's a standard pattern that this is how it will be. And even the environment you deploy might be different. Like as Rajesh mentioned, like I might be deploying dev environments in my public cloud because I don't care much about the SLAs and all. But I want all my production data, everything should be in my private cloud where I need to secure, I have more. That's your production set of things. So this is a set of custom things that you may need to apply for each environment. It might be different. But your blueprint remains the same thing.
And in blueprints also, like if you see today's Java development, a lot of people do the Tomcat development and in the production they do the vSphere virtualized. Also the one that somebody will apply and all the custom in the production and in the development they have
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right.
It is possible. That's what I'm saying. Like, if there are certain, like, that's why I was going there. Like, say in dev, you are combining all of them into a single node. In dev, then you might have a different blueprint. But if you are following, like, mainly for larger enterprises, to avoid this too much of this SMB market, I totally agree. Like, you have a different variations and the standards. But in larger enterprises, as we go, you try to avoid this thing, dev following some different path because testing itself is unpredictable because, oh, my test passed in my unit testing, and when QA goes and deploys, he might say, oh, it's not working. Oh, I tested in Tomcat, but here I'm testing in WebLogic server. So I think some of those things, but it depends, I agree with you, like some of the needs might result in different blueprints.
And bottom line is, if the architecture changes,
yeah,
and this too to me is an architecture change, that I'm using a different app tier or web tier, or I'm combining these two into one, that's an architectural change, then yes, you need to have 2 different blueprints. So that is a multi-tenant use cases which you're talking about. Ability for one blueprint to be shared across different catalogs. That's a fundamental use case you're talking about.
mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Few.
Yes. Well, downloading an application is nothing but downloading a file. So Vivid Blueprint, even though it might look at the front as very big one, it's an XML file that you're actually downloading. So it's not much of an effort from the download perspective also. Having said that, the way we see it, there are two ways you can actually do that. There are customers, especially in the service provider route, where they want to have a completely dedicated instance of application director just to make sure that no catalog is being shared, right? So each tenant will have its own application director instance. That's one aspect. Instance, and then you would share flow. So service provider will have one application director, and each tenant will have its own application director. See, application director is nothing but one appliance. Yeah. Then you import, export blueprints across. That's a very neat and clear way of managing catalogs. That's how some of at least 2 or 3 service providers are doing it now. However, we are also seeing it getting broader and broader in terms of having one single application director instance managing across different tenants. That use cases, in my opinion, can wait, because this use case is good enough for us to move forward. And when you are handling those multi-tenancy use cases, pure multi-tenancy use cases, I think then the way I see is application director needs to have a separate, I'm using a technical term, code branch, just managing the service provider use cases. Because it's not only catalog sharing. There are many aspects there. If somebody wants to apply a patch, this patch needs to be propagated across different tenants. So that way, I think that becomes a little bit more complex, and then expectations are also different. My goal here is to make a rock-solid provisioning, update lifecycle, and release automation solution. I will be deriving from my goal there. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, please.
Sorry, I was going to ask, what would you envisage would be useful integration with products like Data Director, Dynamic Ops, and then also the last one is you had SDM.
Expected.
Was back to that other question about getting copies and refreshing data in the back end. What kind of integration with other systems you might have?
Okay. 3, that's fine. With Data Director, I see, I'm working with the Data Director products team right now on especially certain integration use cases. But the primary one that I see, ability to connect Data Director as a service from Blueprint, which we have now, but providing a connector service. So you can do it now from writing scripts, but I don't want my users to actually write scripts for that. You click, you drag and drop, this is a Data Director, provide user credentials, you should be able to connect. And then provisions database, manages database, you install database schema on top of it, your application is up and running. So your Blueprint creation does not have a data tier, it has an external service tier, which you will say, I am connecting to Data Director as a service. It's more like binding, yes. So those are the top, that's one single use case which actually I want to nail it down. And then there are other use cases where I just, as an architect, whenever actually I'm provisioning, I want to take a backup of database. I want to do snapshots of. Data Director offers many services. And my goal would be to expose those services. Or I should say our goal would be to expose those services in Application Director. Those are the use cases I'm looking at. Okay. Dynamic Ops.
I think one thing to add around the data point is around, I think there is a little bit like currently when we talk about enterprises, it's a little bit around the volume of data. When you're talking about terabytes of data.
I was about to cover that, yes.
And there is a lens and all those things comes into picture that how much you can have, if there is 10 terabytes, 20 terabytes. So I think we are also looking like VMware storage. I think you might have seen in the booths and number of things that you might have seen. Few of the things is also around like how can we enable, because there are physical limitations, say when you are actually, you talked about like how you want to get the data, snapshots and all this thing. There is a complex, there is a physical limitations around how fast you can copy the data of 7 terabytes. You can't have this provisioning take like 60 hours to copy my 10 terabytes. That's the one whole process derails your entire provisioning time. But there are technologies around our partners' ecosystems like EMCS, Isilon, and all these different cloning replications and all these things. Data Director provides to certain set of
Yes,
databases. In
that's
the
right.
same way, like our partner ecosystems are like Cintri and all they have this new way of looking into this set of thing. And we are using, as of now, Isilon as one of our mechanism to actually do this 7 terabytes data in few minutes rather than taking hours and days together. So again, this goes as a service. All this goes as a services in the app director, so that it becomes more as a service that you are binding to this thing so that you can start using.
That's exactly what I was saying. When you look at data director as a service, there are many services that data director offers, and which Thirumalesh was alluding to, that I want to take a backup every 24 hours if I'm deploying in production environment. So it becomes more like a service plus policy discussion or use case. So those use cases we are right now exploring to which level of services we will expose from application director. But yes, goal is to move towards that, where first is integrating it, having an out-of-the-box integration, and second is offering those as services. Dynamic ops we see more as abstraction layer. So application director currently deploys on clouds. First goal would be to deploy on direct vSphere. Dynamic ops already offers that capability. That's number one use case that we would like to have an integration on. Use dynamic ops as an extension of cloud abstraction layer, which I would say virtual abstraction layer rather than cloud abstraction layer, because that will give ability for application director to deploy on virtual servers directly. Right now it deploys on vCloud, EC2, or any other open cloud stack, but not on virtual servers directly. That is where I see I would say like P0 use case. Then a policy engine. It provides a robust policy engine. What policies do we need to expose at application director level? That's what we are exploring now. So it already has a lot of compute resources placement policies. So we'll be exposing that as well.
This is similar to data director in that you would bind it, service, and you would call out.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You had a question.
Sorry, I don't have any experience with the central orchestrator thing, so forgive me this answer.
That's fine.
Our experience right now is, okay, we have a virtual machine, we provision it, and then we go and whatever virtual or whatever JVM we have there, we make updates on it, fine. And then
That was our yesterday. That was our yesterday.
so now you're saying, that's what they said, you want to set something in the APM where, okay, this is below, it goes above 80.
Thresholds.
Go and dynamically scale out.
Yes.
So, and since it's going to look at the blueprint, I assume, so that way it's probably going to roll out a couple more VMs, maybe, or maybe one VM, maybe whatever.
In a way, yes. Yes.
So who initiates this? So APM initiates it, and then it goes to orchestrator, and orchestrator says, okay,
Okay.
we have 2 VMs. What is the flow exactly?
The flow is very simple. It was complex in the past. That earlier you had to call vCenter orchestrator and then you had to write your own flow, because that flow was not there. So you had to write a flow, spin out different VMs, add nodes to it, add middleware software to it. You can always do that from vCenter orchestrator, but you had to do it. Now, with APM integration, what you have is you have a direct link with application director, because application director now does updates. So APM is directly calling application director and saying that spin out 2 nodes. And application director does that.
And application director manage the vCenter also then?
vCenter is not coming into the picture because you are.
Is at the VCD level.
Application director works with vCloud director APIs, where it says spin out 2 more VMs, vCloud director does it for.
I think we have moved one layer next layer, because we are dealing more at
the cloud level.
VDC, because the whole construct is more around tenant.
The resource
the
tenant.
VDC, which everyone is talking over there. We are all now talking about cloud construct. When you go to vCenter, it's more at a virtualization.
You're right.
So
Yes.
we are moved to the cloud layer.
All right then. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.